Good evening, refiners, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Miscellaneous Gab, and I'm excited to talk through Severance Episode 9, After Hours. It's been a minute since we last spoke. Unfortunately, my outie was dealing with reintegration sickness, which limited my innie's ability to refine the video clips and edit them for public viewing. Today, I'm wearing black because I almost feel like I'm at a funeral. I felt a lot of loss. I felt a lot of ending. If you haven't already, make sure you like this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave your comment below about what you thought about this episode. After the total departure from the severed floor during the last couple episodes, it is nice to be back on the severed floor. However, things are not the same. I don't know if they will ever be the same again. Remember back when times were more simple and we were just refining things and winning finger traps and having waffle parties? God, I miss those days. There's so much motion in this episode. People arriving and departing, covering distances, journeys beginning and ending, arriving with anticipation, and leaving for potentially the last time. We open with a great shot of Helena swimming. Her gulps of air really reminded me of the gasps of breath in the Ortbo experience and the bobbing for pineapples. Their stylish and ultra-modern Egan compound is like nothing we've seen in this world before. It's striking, it's beautiful, but it also feels really stark and cold and lonely. It seems like Helena and Jaime and all of our Lumon friends are getting ready for the big day, the momentous day, the finishing of Cold Harbor. As Jaime Egan says, "A momentous day." I'm really getting Lord Voldemort straight out of Quirrell's head when he talks like this. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with him. Not a lot of good things though. Jaime opts to watch his daughter eat versus eat himself. The jury's still out on if he ever does eat, but I figure by Helena saying, "Won't you eat?" that the man does in fact require food and water to survive, and he isn't just plugged into a socket. The way he said, "I'll watch," I felt like it's more than just, "Yeah, honey, I'll just watch you eat and have my coffee and we'll talk about the day ahead." It feels so sinister. It feels performative. I actually got the feeling of Larys Clubfoot and Alicent Hightower scene from House of the Dragon, if that rings a bell or a foot. Helena Egan slices a single hard-boiled egg and arranges the slices meticulously on a pretty old dated plate, which almost looks like it's depicting a fetid moppet, if you will, being wrestled by two nurses or healers. She says that we're seeing to Mr. Bailiff, which means they have plans to destroy Irving's outie as they did his innie, now that they officially know what he's up to. Jaime Egan doesn't even seem too pressed or excited to hear about the seeing to Irving situation. Instead, he leaves her with the, "I wish you'd take them raw." Obviously, this was very creepy to me, but we also know from season 1 that Keir Egan likes his eggs raw, and that is his favorite breakfast. Now, it could just be this thing that Jaime Egan is never satisfied with his daughter and she is forever trying to impress him. It could show that perhaps other Egan CEOs took their eggs raw and she is doing something differently. One of my good internet friends, Cass, talks about a lot is this new wave of the Egans, that there's like the Keir purists and then there's the new Egans. As we know with Keir, he tamed the tempers in the cave of his own mind. I said on my live that it almost sounds a lot more transcendental, a lot more Buddhist. He's truly reaching that state of nirvana by taming the tempers. The new Egans, on the other hand, are all about science and technology and optimization. While old Keir may have never been able to conceptualize of some sort of device that could go inside of your brain and potentially tame your tempers, there might be this divide here in the cult of Keir. The egg and the different evolved way of preparing his favorite breakfast is some sort of symbolism that the contemporary Egans are deviating in a way from the center of what makes the Keir cult, the Keir cult. We move on to see that Miss Huang wins the Jaime Egan head bust that we saw in the last episode, completing the fellowship in the Year of Vision. Milchick tells her that her bed will be moved from her parents' home to the Gunnel Egan Empathy Center in Svalbard. Now, Svalbard is a real place in Norway, and it sounded a lot like banishment to Siberia to me. Milchick is trying to cut the heads off of the snakes. He knows that Miss Huang ratted on him and that passing attacking her early rather than letting her finish the quarter may get her off of his back. He knows that she complained about him using big words. Man, he wants to use his big words. It's clear that he wants to get rid of her, potentially because he sees himself in her. We know he was kind of gunning for Harmony's job and really wants to distinguish himself, and perhaps he doesn't want to be this replaceable part that later in the episode Helly basically accuses him of being, that they just replace one part with another. He requires her to smash her game on the table using the bust of Jaime Egan's head. A material sacrifice is required, but to me this felt a lot like destroying your childhood. Then we get another brief glimpse of Dr. Creepy, and I'm happy to say that he still has the bandage on his head. He's alone watching Gemma's footage. The watchers are not there. Now I find this interesting because work has started. He even says it's 9 o'clock. What is the role of these watchers? Are they just there to catch up on data, or is all of the input and the stream live? Drop your theories in the comments. I know some people say it's micro data refinement. Mr. Mauer has to say goodbye to Gemma once Cold Harbor is finished. He only has about 4% until it's done. His eagerness is interesting to me. Perhaps her hitting him over the head with the chair actually shattered his illusions that she might be in love with him. One thing I noticed is that we're actually back to Gemma's number on the Cold Harbor file versus Helly's. So this broke on Reddit a couple weeks ago that somebody noticed. It was Gemma's number on the Drainsville file, but it was Helly's employee number on the Cold Harbor file. I don't know if that was just a gaffe of production because they don't know that we all take screenshots and discuss them. Drummond calls Milchick and says the numbers aren't moving and demands that Milchick find out where Mark is. Milchick has a pretty bad day overall. He has to deal with Dylan putting in his resignation after Dylan was pretty much the perkiest one of the bunch. He was given the most perks out of anyone, but Milchick is extremely disappointed. It reeks of ingratitude, and this puts the nail in the coffin on the kindness reforms. They did not work. Later, we see this showdown between Milchick and Drummond. Drummond is really pressed about him using big words, which is rich coming from the man who uses the word contretemps. And to me, this is just about hierarchy and control, and it's a pissing contest, and it's about reminding people of their place. However, today Milchick came glove swinging. He is not taking that shit. And we get yet another iconic line from the season.
Devour Feculence. It means eat shit, Mr. Drummond.
Mr. Drummond is speechless, and Milkshake hits him with the facts. The severed floor is my jurisdiction. Whatever's going on out here is your problem. If Mark's not here, go find him. I find this to be such a stark contrast between episode 2, Mr. Milkshake, who was driving all over Kier PE, pineapples in tow, delivering them, kissing butts. He reminds me of that turning point. Anyone who's ever worked a corporate job where you're like, now this, I'm getting paid the same. I'm just sticking to exactly what is in my job description and nothing more. Work is just work. Some people on my Patreon were talking about him being redeemed, and I won't necessarily go so far as to say he is redeemed. I think we could actually see something more sinister come from him rather than something good, but it certainly marks a beautiful turning point in his arc. And then when he gets back to his desk, he gets a call from Mark, and they share this really beautiful moment, this human connection, when Mark says the reason he's not there is basically because he needs a mental health day. These tears well up in Milchick's eyes. Maybe Milkshake needs a day off. Maybe even these corporate cultish overlords need their day off, need to lay on the couch and watch Netflix and eat ice cream. Now let's talk about Dylan and Gretchen. We get a confirmation that she is indeed a 911 dispatcher, and I'm hoping that this does come into play later on. She confesses to the weird affair situation she's having with Dylan's innie, and according to the poll I posted on my YouTube, most people like Dylan are not okay with this, either on principle or because of also the lying and sneaking around. He is understandably angry and even threatens to quit. And then we get to the really sad breakup scene between Innie, Dylan, and Gretchen, and she breaks his heart and says that she can no longer do this with him and that he needs to focus on work. I felt really sad for Dylan, especially because he planned on proposing to Gretchen with a ring made out of the finger trap. He's using his perks to give her an engagement ring, and his perks are really the only thing that he can give her. That's really the only thing he has down there on the severed floor, because the actual payment for the work he does goes to his Audi. The Patreon family felt that this scene was maybe a bit contrived, wasn't their favorite part of the episode. I did like certain elements of it, and I have really enjoyed the Dylan and Gretchen moments this season. I don't know where Dylan is going next. He's gone back and forth a lot this season, where I feel like his arc in season 1 was way more straightforward. We go from him not giving a F about the Audis to feeling totally defeated and saying, I guess we really are all the same. Telling Helly that they didn't know that it was Helena, that he's an asshole just like his Audi. And then we're left with this putting in the resignation request form, and even though the Audi technically has to approve of that, he still walks to the elevator knowing that might be his death march, because his application could be approved and he could never be coming back. Now, I don't think this is the end of Dylan, but it is this sense of sadness that Dylan grew so much from being this kind of selfish, smarmy ass to the sacrifice he did at the end of season 1, and now I'm just not 100% sure where he is and where his story is going. Now let's talk about Irving. We get a proof of life from Radar, which we were very happy to see. I guess Radar doesn't really sound the alarm or the radar when someone's in the house. Maybe he didn't do that for Drummond, and he certainly isn't doing that for Bert. From the creepy music to the half-lit face to Christopher Walken, all I could think was, run, Irving, run. This is not good. We knew he was bad, but this just sealed the deal. He's reading over Irving's notes, and we realize that Irving actually had a lot on Bert, figuring out that he might be responsible for people's deaths or disappearances and could potentially be a low-level goon or fixer for Lumon. Irving says, I know you're not with them, and I wonder if he really means it. Like, was that dinner alone enough to kind of prove that maybe Irving was wrong? Or was he just saying that because he doesn't want Bert to throw him in the trunk and drive away with him? Bert asked to go for a ride with him, and again, I'm thinking, run, Irving, take Radar and go. Bert explains what he really did at Lumon, and it makes sense why he was so bad. Even though he said he never hurt anyone, which is what they all say, he clearly was this kind of driver. He didn't ask questions, he drove people places, and they were never seen again. Now, I think the new Bert is that guy that Harmony was so afraid of. Clearly, Lumon disappears people when they become inconvenient for them. The first time I watched this, I totally missed that Radar was in the car, and the whole time it was really bothering me at the train station. I'm like, where is Radar? You would not leave Radar behind, and that actually broke my heart. And then we get the Bert redemption. He wants to do the right thing. He genuinely does want to save Irving. It seems like Bert is risking his own neck to save Irving. He really has worked at Lumon for 20 years, and the dinner they had with the Lumon partner was a business partner, and he truly maybe got severed so that part of him could be innocent. Bert said that if the innocent part of him fell in love with Irving, that he did something right. This is where I can't get through this without crying, but Irving says that he's never been loved before. And it's just so sad to me that the part of him that has been loved is, sorry, I hate when people film themselves crying. The part of him that has been loved is the part that he can't even remember. Unfortunately, he has to choose between life and love and just ride away on the train with the knowledge that some part of him on some level was able to feel and receive that love from Bert. When he puts his head up to Bert's and says that he's ready and he wants it, it made me so sad. I just love Irving so much. They put their heads together in a very reminiscent way, as they did on the severed floor. Bert says bon voyage, which he said in his retirement video, and he says he can't know where Irving is. Irving kind of rides away with a little bit of a smile, maybe because on some level he has found love in his life, even though he can't have it permanently. I don't feel like Irving's story is even close to feeling finished. So much that we don't know about him, and we need to know. Okay, now let's get to Mark, Devin, and Harmony Cobel. Now, Mark is missing from work and is apparently not reintegrated. I really thought that the reintegration was complete. I thought that was kind of the whole full circle moment of Chikai Bardo. His synapses were completely coupled, but we really don't see any difference between him since flooding the chip and before, other than he looks like absolute shit and he's sassy. A lot of people question Devin's motives and if she's up to something and if she's sus, and why she called Harmony Cobel. I just think Devin is a big sister. As a big sister, I do find some of the way that they're handling this to be a little bit weak. They say in the car, oh, we told her everything. Why would you tell her everything when you don't even fully think that you can trust her? Once they meet up with Cobel, Mark's like, we shouldn't be trusting her, and he's kind of freaking out a little bit. Why wasn't this your protest before you called her or before you told her everything? I know that they need to come together, and I know that this is the way the show is doing it. I actually wish we could have seen Devin convince Mark before they even called her. And even Devin's like, maybe it's a trap, maybe it's not. Like, I'm pretty sure you need to be a little bit more sure. We get that classic, hello, Mark.
Hello, Mark.
Mark's sass is on full display here. This reminds me of when he called it the bullshit gazette to a milkshake in the elevator. Harmony says if you've completed it, she's already dead. So we get confirmation that Cold Harbor in some way, shape, or form will lead to the death of Gemma, either because the experiment is complete and they won't need her anymore, or because Cold Harbor is actually a death room. They go to the Ramona Birthing Center under the cover of darkness, and I'm a little bit confused here because Ragabi said that this was a totally different thing, that they can't just go there and turn Mark on and talk to him, but that's literally exactly what they did. The Ramona Birthing Retreat is using the same technology as the Severed Floor, which is different from the technology that's being used on the testing floor. The testing floor allows for multiple different innies to come out based on their location, but at Ramona, it is the same version of Mark that's on the Severed Floor. Harmony Cobel looks at the guard and says she's one of James. And I, of course, immediately got even more creeper vibes. I've always felt like this man is so creepy. I feel like he pimped out his daughter to Mark, whatever's going on, but now I'm getting this feeling that he potentially assaults many women and has to kind of usher them off to go give birth. I don't know, take their baby or tame the baby's tempers or whatever's going on. This just so nobody can take a DNA sample and find out that Jaime Egan has all these illegitimate children running around. Does he do what Joffrey did in Game of Thrones? Remember that news story in season 1 where Natalie is on the news and there's this issue because one of the Severed employees got pregnant a month into working there. Is Jaime McCreepy just creeping around? Is he the guy who was behind Mark in that first shot? Is he just constantly creeping around there and creeping on girls? Like, what is going on? Then we get a little shout out to the Twilight Zone, just like we do in the episode title. Now, I will confess, I do not watch the Twilight Zone. I'm not super familiar. I had to educate myself on this. But Harmony Cobel makes several references to an episode of the Twilight Zone. And I find the references and the episode to be quite interesting once I looked up what it all meant. The woman, Marsha White, is looking around a department store on the 9th floor for a golden thimble. Now we then find out that she is actually a mannequin who was granted a month of living among humans and forgot her true identity. In the last moments of the episode, you can see Marsha in her truest form back as a mannequin modeling the clothes on the sales floor. Now, this is very paranormal and strange, and I know that there's a lot of connection between the Twilight Zone and Severance, but this raised the question to me, like, could there be, just like she was allowed to live as a human, but she's really a mannequin, are there innies living out in the world pretending to be their outies or just innies living outside? And I know there's a lot of theories out there that Rebecca and company are innies or goats. Could Lumon be replacing the outies with the innies at some point? Now, with both Mark and Irving kind of going on their little escapades, my only thought was, does Lumon not have tracking devices on these ships? Now let's talk about Helly. She seems still like the most gung-ho person there, trying to go through with the plan, trying to do Irv's memory some justice. Dylan is down bad, Mark is MIA, and she's trying, even though Dylan said some things that hurt. We end with Helly being the first and last person in the office for the day, trying to memorize the map. And at first I'm like, why didn't she just take it with her? But it makes sense that if it got confiscated, she would lose her key to the exports hall. So she's trying to memorize about 5,000 turns when she is interrupted by Jaime Egan standing behind her. Before that, the exports hall elevator dings, and at first I thought he walked out of it and was maybe visiting the testing floor to check on the progress of Cold Harbor, but then Cass's Twisted pointed out that it was the ding that meant he was going down. So who else was going down? Was it Dr. Maurer going down for one last little visit? He comes up behind her and says, "You tricked me. First, I thought maybe he's referring to the Ortbow, but then it also makes sense. The last and only time they were together was when the OTC was triggered and they had that conversation. She made him believe that he was talking to his own daughter. Now, this is kind of similar to what Dylan said of like, we couldn't tell that Helena was down here. We thought it was you. And this kind of goes both ways, that he couldn't even tell maybe that it wasn't his daughter, but was this innie that these people think are animals. The way he says my Helly though feels very creepy, but also a little bit more endearing from somebody who might think these people just serve the purpose of being a corporate slave. I'm very interested to see where their interaction picks off. Oh, what if he starts to like this innie version of his daughter a little bit more, or in a different way, or I don't know. What do you guys think? Anyway, that is episode 9. Ooh, whew, that was a big one. We're back to normal, hoping for a midweek theory video as well as a live pre-game, potentially a post-game for the finale. Don't worry guys, I'm not going anywhere even after this next episode. There's going to be so much more Severance content on this channel. So if you haven't already, join my community, join me over on Patreon, and we will continue this party. Keep having fun. I know it's tempting guys, but whatever you do, you gotta stay safe out there. Don't go for rides with any strange men, and whatever you do, don't get severed. See you next time. Bye.